Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home and Away, a podcast devoted to all things in and around the world of sport in Kansas City soccer. I am Drew Vanderploeg, and I am joined, once again, as always, by my good friend Cody Welton this week. This week on the podcast, Sporting Kansas City has signed a new player, and it is a defender, and we should all rejoice, right? That all the problems are fixed now, right? Obviously not, but they did make some news last week, bringing in Alan Montes, the younger brother of Cesar Montes, well known of Mexican national team fame, and now playing professional soccer in Russia, I think. But at any rate, Alan Montes coming from Necaxa. This is a loan with option to buy deal that I think continues to show Mike Burns' philosophy towards maintaining flexibility when it comes to player signings. And it obviously addresses an area of need as the center back position, both in present and the future, is going to be a significant area of retooling as this team continues its rebuild process. So obviously a key area to discuss there. We'll also dig into some discussion around youth development and how perhaps Kerry Zavagnin might be setting this team up to play, being influenced by that youth development, given the number of players that are getting regular starting minutes that are effectively first-year players, even in the case of John Pulskamp, given how few minutes he had played this year. In Potpourri, we got a lot of stuff going on. MLS Hot Stove is on fire right now.
Scalding.
It's scalding hot. There are a lot of things happening, and with 30 teams in the league and it being a secondary transfer window and the time when you can get players from Europe, there's a lot happening right now. And so we'll dig into some of those, as well as the Kansas City Current getting back on the field for matches that matter and looking just as dominant as they did prior to this break. Also scalding, yeah. Looking just as dominant as they did just prior to their break, and also getting better, it appears, at the same time from a roster perspective. So we'll get into all of that as well. And then we'll do a quick preview of the San Diego game this week and get our thoughts on kind of how Sporting might attempt to try to solve a problem that very few teams have been able to solve when it comes to San Diego this season. So, Cody, Alan Montes, big, tall, aerially dominant center back from Mexico, 24 years old. There's, at least on paper, it seems like at least the right type of player. I think maybe this is going to be a different guy than what we've seen historically for Sporting Kansas City, or at least in recent history for Sporting Kansas City. And I'll get into that when I talk about kind of my Y Scout deep dive. But what are your thoughts on Montes and just kind of like the direction that the club is going, especially given the stuff we've discussed in the past regarding sort of the limitations in the front office?
Well, I think that's the thing that really jumped out, is that this is not the profile of player really, either in terms of age or the league he's coming from, or really his skill set. This is not the profile of player that we've really seen brought in to Sporting Kansas City in 15 years, 20 years. And so that part of it, I think, is heartening and a little bit exciting. Get to see something new. And there is the only problem is, and it's a problem that we've seen throughout this summer and this season, and it's to some degree an unavoidable problem, is that it's unclear how much of a deep or long-term fix this could possibly be. And we talked about it ad nauseum really, but until the chief soccer officer and rest of the front office stuff gets built up to the point where they can handle this kind of stuff. This is probably I don't want to say it's as good as it's going to get, because we've seen the club sign 2 designated players, but it's pretty good, right? All things considered, and unfortunately, I don't think it's I don't think it is wise for Sporting Kansas City fans to expect much more. but it's nice to have something, right? It's nice that they're not just sitting on their hands and sort of, waiting in a wait and see attitude until they get a chief soccer officer. But I think that enthusiasm, while warranted, should be tempered, and we'll see sort of how many minutes this player plays and where he slots in. And I mean, there's a lot of unknowns, right? There's a lot of unknowns as to how Zavagnin's going to try and implement him. And we've seen sort of maybe a more tentative kind of implementation of other players like Santi Munoz, and so it's kind of it's still kind of an ongoing question mark, but it is, as I noted, it's positive to see the club not just standing pat, right? Because it's obvious that there needs to be some big changes happening, and the longer those changes are not going away, and they're not getting smaller the longer the club waits.
Yeah, they can't keep kicking. I mean, look, Mike Burns still has a job, regardless of how limited the resources are within the front office right now, and the fact that Mike's probably having to go visit and look at every single player himself right now. And I have it on fairly decent authority. He has done that for a lot of players already during this season. He's still trying to accomplish that goal, which is to improve this team and improve this roster. That is his job. And he's still working on that as hard as he can with the limited resources that he has. And I think maybe the benefit of not having a CSO in place is he really can't focus on staffing because there's no point in it, right? As we discussed a couple weeks ago, staffing up his direct reports or the people, around, assistant sporting director and these different roles that, analytics department and stuff like that was supposed to be done and he was going to do in concert with Peter Vermees. It's not realistic to expect that any of those roles can be filled until they hire a chief soccer officer. So at least from that perspective, that part has to wait. So he can focus on the first team roster part of his job, sort of all in. And he's able to make some, in concert with, obviously, with the consultation with ownership regarding fees and things like that they're going to pay. He can get some of these deals done. And I think that, to your point, it's unrealistic to expect that they're going to be taking massive swings with dollars right now.
Right.
There is so much area for opportunity for improvement within this roster that they can still, find players that potentially could help. I think you mentioned that, we don't know if he's going to be integrated or how much of an impact this player could potentially have. I think it's fair to be a little bit unsure of how much impact he could have, mainly because he hasn't really played a lot of soccer since, the spring. And even then he was playing, he was coming in as a substitute for most of the month of March. So it really hasn't been since January or so that he's actually been a significant part of Necaxa's plans. So it's hard to know what kind of form he's in right now. So that is a key component of this. I think it's reasonable to assume that he's fit given he's gone through preseason and they're a couple games into their season. But I think the other thing is I would be really, really surprised if he was to not play. Like if he was to not play, that would mean loan is a bust and we're sending him back. Right. I think given the fact that they only have 10 games left in the season, and what it sounds like is that's the best way of me describing this. There were a lot of immigration things that they were trying to work out regarding this transaction that he actually helped out on a lot and actually stayed in Mexico when his team went to Leagues Cup and did all kind of things to try and help this deal get done. And because of that, we're fairly sure that he's going to be practicing this week, which is not normally the case with these types of transactions, right? It's usually okay, announced transaction, 3 weeks later, have a visa, right? And I don't think that's going to be the case with this guy. I can't definitively say he's going to be in the starting or he's going to be in the available player list on Saturday, but I would not be surprised if that was the case.
Right.
And I think with only 10 games left and on a loan with buy option, you have to get him in games to see if he fits. You have to see if he can build a rapport with, say, a Jansen Miller, right? You have to like figure out if this is actually going to be worthwhile, because ostensibly there is a buy option, which means probably mid to high TAM is going to be his cap charge if you keep him here. So and that's going to get a lot of furrowed brows amongst our listenership, because we have a history of these $1 million+ salary cap charge center backs doing jack shit. There's one on the roster right now. And it's been not even just like almost like infuriating to sometimes to watch them play, given how much of the salary budget capital is being expended on this player, right? And so, like, that kind of investment is coming, and the best teams in the league have several center backs that perform at a high level at around that charge, right? The Aaron Logs, the Miles Robinsons, the Matt Miazgas, the Eddie Seguras, like Walker Zimmerman is actually still on a DP deal. Like, you've got enough, like the teams with the better or known center backs in the league are paying that amount of money for them.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily investment. It's just Sporting's history and getting quality out of that investment. And so you've got to get the guy on the field. And I would be very surprised to see him not play, like, regularly, honestly.
Yeah, it's not like, when I mentioned earlier that, that it was kind of unknown, how Zavagnin would handle it. Now, and to his credit, we've talked about Zavagnin has played young players quite a bit, and like a lot, right? With regards to, Jacob Bartlett and John Pulskamp and Jansen Miller. Munoz is the only one that's kind of, weird, but it's, as we addressed, in previous episodes, that's I think mostly due to his fit, sort of tactically, on
and structurally. When we get to the conversation about structure later, when we talk about the young player stuff, I think that has something to do with it as well.
Sure, but I don't anticipate that to necessarily be the case with this player. And the thing is that when you look at the other center backs that are on the roster, most of them are probably not going to be here, right? And so why would you play those guys if you evaluated them and for sure that they're not going to be in the plans for next year, and you've only got 10 games left? Like, there's no point, right? Especially if you have young players who you can give a chance to and you can take a look at. And so I think it'll be interesting to see what this means about Volater's playing time as he comes back into fitness. It'll be interesting to see what it means with Ian James and his playing time. So I'm almost kind of discarding wholesale both Danny Rosero and Joaquin Fernandez, and it's not like I don't think we'll see them at all, but I would be surprised if
we see Danny Rosero in a 20, I will be shocked, absolutely shocked if Danny Rosero even makes the bench the rest of the year. Joaquin Fernandez, I think he will, mainly because, for your point about Ian James, we'd like him to play some soccer.
Yeah.
And I think the goal this year was to sign him to a homegrown contract, have him train with the first team constantly, maybe get a spot minute here or there, like he was kind of forced into a couple times, but mostly play with the second team, right? Yeah. Like, I think that was generally the goal. They haven't been able to do that because of injuries, right? Yeah, Rosero's been hurt all year. Yeah. Volater does his collarbone, and he has to be on the bench for every game. He's had to start a game when they had the suspension issues. So it's like I think Fernandez will be there as backfill for that kind of thing, and Volater as well. Volater's an interesting one because I think that he and Miller had developed a decent amount of rapport prior to him injuring himself.
Seems like it.
And he is by far the best left center back they have when it comes to covering space. So with Logan Ndenbe's sort of offensive responsibilities and
propensity for walkabout,
propensity for walkabout, limited want to recover defensively. Yeah, you need someone who can cover that space when those wingers get in behind, and Volador was actually pretty adept at that. I do have concerns about Montes being that guy, but as I said in the Discord earlier this week, I think solving 1v1 transition events with center backs is not the center back's problem, right?
Right.
Like that is a structural issue that allows these center backs to be put in these positions.
Yep.
That is not the fault of the center back that they can't quell them all themselves, right? And you don't have Mickey Van de Ven. Here's my Spurs.
Drink.
Yeah, exactly. my Spurs discussed on the pod. I think Mark Kaffer said it's going to be the free space on the bingo card.
Yeah. Perfect.
But they don't have Mickey Van de Ven, right? You don't have someone who can run at 22 miles an hour and is sort of a human eraser in transition. And most teams don't. They eliminate transition by having good transition defense.
Right.
And Sporting is just, as a team, poor at defending transition. It's not necessarily a center back problem. So I'll be interested to see how Volador shakes, because he's effectively playing for a contract as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think prior to him breaking his collarbone was doing an admirable job of trying to earn that next contract. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of forgot about him. Now, his absence has shown that he was playing well, because when other people played that position, they did not do it at his level.
Yeah.
I think with bringing in Montes, maybe I'd be surprised to see Jansen Miller come off the field again for the reasons we'll talk about in a minute. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to end up doing, but it's an interesting thing to consider. I mean, I think they have to give Montes as many chances as possible to show what he's capable of doing. And I think so. Like, getting into my sort of evaluation of him, we sort of alluded to the fact that this is a completely different profile center back than this team has had that I can remember. He is 6'4" and he plays like it. Like, he is a big dude. He has some unbelievable set piece goals in his history. Like, he does it in the way that I think Steve on the Discord asked, like, what is his playing style? And I sort of, and I hesitate to say this, but his style is very similar to Walker Zimmerman. He's a big dude who gets on the end of set pieces, tends to sort of hammer home headers, also has one scored with his foot as well, where he just was in the right place. But also is just a box controller, right? Like, that's kind of his thing. He's like, he wants to control the box. He wants to organize the defense inside the box. He wants to eliminate entry balls. Like, that's kind of his vibe.
It sounds delightful.
Well, it sounds like just someone that they haven't had, right? Like, they've been so focused on this possession-based sort of, play out the back type of passing left-sided center back. And to be fair, Montes is right-footed and can play either center back position, but played a lot of left center back for Necaxa. So I think that's another reason why, they're not necessarily concerned with bringing him on next to Jansen Miller. But I also want to be careful. I don't want to compare Montes to Zimmerman. Like, I'm not saying that they're the same player or the same level of player. I'm just saying the style is similar. He has the agility of a 6'4" dude that looks like, that towers over everyone and tries to slam the ball off with his head. So that is going to be a problem against deft of foot wingers, 1v1. But I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting direction for them to go, and it leaves me wondering. And this is an unanswerable question with no chief soccer officer and no front office staff or any of that stuff. But, like, what type of soccer team Sporting wants to be?
Yeah.
And I find myself asking this question because they're going to play a team on Saturday who is 100% sure of the soccer team they want to be.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? And I'm still completely unsure of what Sporting means to be soccer-wise.
So would you consider Montes to be, from what you've seen, is he a menacing player? Is he a center back who is intimidating?
He's 24, right? So like I think when I think of, like, intimidating center backs, I think of, like, Kendall Waston,
Right.
maybe Sergio Ramos, right? Like those types of players. I don't know that I saw enough of, and this is the problem with Wisecout. It's all actions, right? So like I've
Right.
seen like 5 games worth of actions, and so you don't really see how he's battling on set pieces or those kinds of like all the stuff that happens in before or after plays. So it's hard for me to actually make an assessment on that. And I'm actually interested to see him play, to see what he does, like
Yeah.
like what his, when he's not touching the ball, what's happening, right? Because I think that that's obviously as, if not as much, if not more important. Like if he's denying entry, if he's denying access to attacking players, that is a positive, and it's hard for me to say yes or no, because again, all of the stuff I've seen of him has been action related.
That's fair.
He's got the size and the physicality for it. I will
But
tell
we
you
don't.
that.
We know we don't need another shithouser. We got a good one of those. So two on the back line might be one too many.
Maybe so. But that's the thing, is like I don't see him dropping to the ground to tackle, like making last ditch tackles. I don't see him it's just there's a sort of calmness to his game that I think this team could really use, honestly. They're just they could really, really benefit from just having a guy who just like, oh, entry ball, I see that, clear it. You know what I mean? It's just something that I feel like they haven't had at the position for a while. And I also think that where I did see him get really physical is in aerial duels defensively. Like he will make, like, especially if you go long against Sporting, like he's going to be there to clear those a lot. So yeah, I think that there's some upside there.
That's good.
That in a way that we just in a different style of player, as we've kind of alluded to.
Not having to witness frantic hair on fire defending from center backs every game would be a welcome change.
Yeah. I often wonder, like, sometimes if it's just because of our fan nature that we're just constantly, like, anxious whenever the ball gets near the 18-yard box, or if they're really that bad.
Well, it's not. I mean, they're not quite that bad right now, but they have been bad at that for a long enough to make it, a trend, right? And a worrying one. And so yeah, I could, I love Jansen Miller's goal line clearances, but we could do with less of those.
I mean, yeah, I mean it's great that he's pulling them off, but
Right.
I would prefer they were not necessary.
Yeah.
And I, again, that goes back to the whole conversation about transition defending not necessarily being a center back problem either. Like
Right.
we're complaining about the symptom and not the actual
Absolutely.
problem, right? And it's just, again, I this is obviously an area of need. It was an area of need
Yeah.
now and in the winter. Hopefully this turns into something positive, and if not, they can cut bait and look elsewhere in the winter.
Well, and I want to mention before we move on, like don't forget the knock-on effect sort of down the line on the soccer team, right? If you have a competent and assertive defensive presence, that's good for John Pulskamp. That's great for Jacob Bartlett. Having somebody back there who you're not constantly having to worry about covering for is a big deal for everybody. And with the amount of young players that we have on the team around that position, having someone step in and being able to exert some control would really be a positive thing, I think, in terms of the development of those players. And we've already seen a really positive development line from Pulskamp, and maybe less consistently positive from Bartlett, but it's still there for both of those players, and you can throw Miller into that too, and having somebody out there who can exert some control, I think, would make their jobs a lot easier and make their development pathway a little bit smoother.
I agree completely. I think I know Mike McGrew has put it up on his Blue Sky a lot, and I know it's a conversation I've had with Daniel Sperry before. But the if you look at the Kansas City Current and how much their goals allowed improved when Kayla Sharples joined the team, and who they just recently extended through 2027, which was, I think,
Yeah.
a really big deal. Obviously, Alana Cook is a big deal to their back line as well, but really Sharples is the one that has really sort of solidified things.
Yep.
We often talk. I think we talked about it last week. Daniel and I did. Like, shutouts are not a goalkeeping stat; they're a defensive stat, and
Absolutely.
that the Current just started getting a ton of shutouts once Sharples came into the lineup. I think is something you can draw a line to.
Even without Cook.
Yeah, even without
Yep.
Alana Cook, they shut out Louisville this weekend, and Sharples was great in that game.
Yep.
And Sharples is also, she's a big defender who is good in the air and really locks down the box. I'm not trying to say that that's what Montes will be for Sporting, but I think the style of player is analogous, and I think that it is something that this club has desperately needed for some time. And whether he pulls it off or not is going to be up to him. But I think the profile and the type and the age and all of the things about it are something to have some optimism about, because it has not been something this club has historically prioritized, as you said. And it also speaks to Mike Burns' philosophy towards improving this roster. And it's been fairly divergent from what we've gotten used to, right? And I think it shows that perhaps, at the very least, I think his contract is up at the end of this year. There might be an option or something like that after that, but I think that they'll be keeping him around, at least in the sporting director role, right? Because the job he's been doing, I think, for the most part, has been fairly positive. And even in this very sort of difficult, sort of, confusing time to be working with the team, he's still continued to find areas of improvement for the roster, which is good.
I mean, he's keeping things moving forward in a positive direction and trying to make incremental improvements without really knowing what lies ahead. And I think that's a pretty difficult job, and he's done he's acquitted himself, I think, pretty nicely at that.
And I would say, like, what's the best way I can say this? I would say that he has also been very discerning. Is the best way I can say it, about what players they've brought in and what players he's looked at, and like the lack of movement outside of this is not for lack of effort and not for lack of going and identifying and looking at players.
Right.
And it is because, for whatever reason, those weren't the right fit.
Yep.
And I can appreciate the fact that they're continuing to go along that path and not making knee-jerk decisions about players. And in fact, in a circumstance like this with Montes, where he hasn't really played a whole lot of soccer since March, and Burns hasn't really been able to see him on the field, it's like, okay, well, we'll bring him on, but it's a loan.
Yep.
Right. We need to see him play before we're going to be like, okay, well, yeah, we're going to take this guy on. And that is the right way to approach this. And I think that is that shows some growth.
Yeah. Some restraint, yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So what is your take on the last several games? Obviously, we kind of discussed the fact that, the schedule was probably going to start getting the better of Sporting.
Right.
They get Manu gets injured. Eric Tommy has been injured through all of these. Can we draw a line between those and the results, or is it just really the quality of opponent, or both?
I think it's mostly the quality of opponent. I mean, I think that my take is as a classic, Dennis Green take. They are who we thought they were. This. We were never overly enamored with this team, and we didn't. We always, I think, kind of suspected that they would come back to earth. And once they started playing more higher quality opponents, and it just so happens that coincided with injuries to some of their better players, and they're just not. They're not good enough. They're not deep enough. They're not talented enough to compensate for both of those things. And so I don't think that they're I don't think there's any surprise in the way that they're performing. Um, I don't think. I also don't think it's reason. I don't think it's reason to abandon ship. It's just it is what it is, and this is always going to be was always going to be a rebuilding year, and I think that the conversation that you had with Sperry, that I think that we're going to continue a little bit here in a little bit, that about player development and the attitude towards that. I mean, that is what a year like this, a season like this, is for, right? That's what it comes down to, and the fact that Zavagnin has been able to play a lot of young players and get them, I think, really meaningful developmental minutes, while still, for the most part, fielding a competitive team, and a team that, is capable at times of playing some enjoyable soccer. I think I mean, that's kind of a win, right? When you think of everything, of all the context surrounding this season. And I wish the season was different, but it's not. It is what it is, and I think that all parties involved, are kind of making the best of a bad situation.
Yeah, so I would agree with most of what you said. I think my question is, and this is something that kind of goes back to a text conversation you and I have had about, is Kerry a good coach or not? Are we real? Do we know? Are
Yeah,
we sure? And that's something
we still
Sperry
don't
and
we
I
still don't
talked
really
about a little.
know.
We really don't. And my question to you was, how much better could this team reasonably be than they have been playing?
Yeah,
Like realistically, I understand where your questions come from, where you're kind of like unsure, and I am too. But part of the reason that Kerry sort of gets an incomplete is because the roster is incomplete,
yeah,
right? And they are so limited in capability in some areas that it's hard to see how he could reasonably be evaluated in his ability to get the most out of what I mean. I think getting 6 wins with this roster over whatever how long however many they played now under Kerry, 23, or it's 23 total games, 24 total, so they played 18 under him. Winning a third of those games is honestly about as good as I could expect they could do,
all right. I
really.
mean, and when you factor in the fact that it's that it's a basically a first year starting goalkeeper, a first year starting right center back, a first year starting defensive midfielder. Yes, I think that he deserves credit for that, and I think that a lot of my frustration has been with the sort of continued insistence on sort of, especially at the beginning of games, trotting out a formation and a system that looked very, very reminiscent of Burmese teams, and I think that was one of the enlightening things about your conversation with Sperry, is that the I guess I had not really considered that they might be doing that really to further develop Jacob Bartlett, in that number 6 role, and so it's sacrificing. Maybe it's the idea is, it's okay to sacrifice some results now playing him at the 6, versus maybe being giving yourself a better chance to be competitive if he was playing as a third center back. So, and I don't know that that's the case. I don't know,
Yeah.
I mean, who knows, right? But it's at least something that I really hadn't really considered. And if indeed the club is sort of thinking that far ahead and being that deliberate and strategic about it, I have no problem with that, right? I mean, I think that even if it turns out to be the wrong decision, at least it's a decision made sort of with the right mindset involved, and development, and thinking ahead proactively to the future, instead of just being reactive and panicking.
Yeah, so I think Pulskamp, Miller, and Bartlett being in the roles that they're in is definitely intentional, right? They're doing that intentionally,
Yeah.
putting Miller in the right center back and a back four. Obviously, Pulskamp's a goalkeeper, and Bartlett as a single pivot six is intentional for their own development. I think that Kerry has a weird balance that he has to manage, right? Which is what am I doing? What giving these guys a familiar structure so that they can see how opponents are trying to play against them in real time and gaining some experience from that and understanding the speed of it and understanding the ball movement. And man, the off ball movement against San Diego, they're going to get a good look at a team that's very adept
Yeah, they are.
at using rotating triangles to create space. Like that is something they're extremely adept at. So if like going out there in the 4-3-3, if this is going to be your nominal architecture going forward, and I think for Bartlett, this was a part that Sperry brought up last week that I thought was valid. If you want Bartlett to be a midfielder, you have to play him as a midfielder. If you play him as a center back, he's going to become a de facto third center back, and that's what he's going to be, right?
Yep.
He's never going to hone these skills that are necessary to be a six. So I sort of understand. I can actually get behind that. And we're going to take some lumps in the meantime. Like there's going to be space available. There's going to be transition event. Like all the things that we've seen the defense try to manage are going to be part of a part of it. But what I also see Kerry doing, and this is I think the thing that you asked me about, like the quote unquote the two carries, the one that comes up with the initial game plan, and then the guy that comes in at halftime and throws it all out the window and tried something else. I think that you're finding that he's willing to build a structure, drill a structure, see if the structure can possibly work. And then in order to not lose the locker room and turn every performance into a sort of droll, like ass whipping, let's make some changes to get some more life out of this team and say, hey, look, we can still play with these guys if we adjust to what the opponent's doing or we adjust our personnel. So I think that he's showing a willingness to do that. And I think that develops players as well. Bartlett playing in two different ways in one match is what will make him a better player, right?
Yep.
And make him a more well-rounded player. Miller being able to range forward more often, which we know he likes to do when he plays as a third center back, it helps him influence the game a little bit more and gets him more bought into what's going on. So I do think that there is value to it at some level. I think you have to really, to your point, have to really like step back and go, okay, what is the goal here, and try to conceptualize that in order to kind of get your head around to why these decisions might be made. I think it's interesting that those are the players that are being prioritized. It's not something we've seen this team do in the past, right?
Yeah,
but obviously all of them are going to be around next year, and they hope are going to be significant contributors next year.
Well, not only that, I mean, the thing about prioritizing, that profile of player is either they're going to be around next year or they're going to be sold, right? I don't think any of these players are close to being sold, but I mean, that's sort of the shift in mindset, right? That you spend time developing young players and providing them a pathway to being successful. And, either you find out that they can't cut it and they're squad players, or they're players who can start for, they're MLS starting quality players, or they're above that and you can sell them. It's really like, it's kind of a win-win-win model, right? And it's a model that Sporting Kansas City has to be moving towards being able to take advantage of if they want to stay relevant in the league, I think.
For sure. I mean, sometimes you'll see, like I'm on the Soccer Wise Discord quite a bit, and you'll see discussions around, roster building and sort of, franchise philosophies towards like how they build out their team. And people will say, well, you can go with the academy first model, or you can go with acquisition model, or blah, 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 blah. And I think someone said the other day, it's like, I think you have to try to maximize every single avenue you can to get players.
It's an all hands on deck model.
It's not a. I mean, sure, you're going to have priorities. There's a list of priorities of which ones you're going to go after first are going to be the most important to you, but you can't throw any of them out, right?
No.
You can't.
San Diego's a developmental focused squad, but they also have Andrew Stryer, right? I mean,
And Chucky Lozano.
And Lozano, yeah.
And Yepe, I'm not going to say his name. Anyway, they have several of their, like 4 of their players came from Nordsjælland, right? Like that from the sister club that were quite kind of aware of their structure and how they go about playing the game, so that there was a familiarity at least with a number of the players that could help with the young players that they're also augmenting into the roster at the same time. And I think, again, that we'll get to San Diego at the end here, but it goes to that sort of all-in mindset about what your idea is, about what type of team you want to be, but you use all the mechanisms available to you to try to find the right player. And we're just starting to see the inklings of that happening in Kansas City, right? Both with drafted players, homegrown players, acquisitions, right? We're just starting to see the potential of that shifting pretty significantly in a positive direction. Sporting Kansas City 2 is a whole nother conversation that I think, again, is significantly impacted by the turmoil in the front office. And I'm not going to say I'm going to give them a pass. I'm just going to say, like, it's impossible for that team to be anything good given what's going on inside the building right now structurally, right? Like, and the fact that they made a very significant pivot, like basically right before the season started, in how they go about doing getting personnel for that team, right? And so like but we can see an idea in mind, right, and a goal, and then sort of progressing towards it. It's just going to take some time, and obviously in the meantime we're having to watch, not always the best soccer team in the world, and they're going to play against a really good team this weekend who is very clear on who they are and what they want to be, and is very organized in that fact. And it's going to be difficult. I also want to highlight like something that's going to be a massive difference between these two teams on Saturday, which is how they deal with goal kicks. And the main reason I bring it up is because I think it was something that Daniel brought up last week, and it's something you and I have discussed a little bit as well. That goes along the lines of like how to best put some of these younger players in positions to succeed, not necessarily put them in high risk situations, even if you'd like to. I think Kerry is making a tactical choice when he's booting things long, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a developmental choice as well, right? Mm-hmm. The first one is, we discussed several times, John Pulskamp has a fucking cannon of a leg, right? So like you can actually use that for value more than you can for a lot of other goalkeepers. Secondly, it means you're not putting Jacob Bartlett in a position where he's getting pressure coming to his back and he's having to make snap decisions. And especially against a team like San Diego this weekend, you're limiting what you're asking of a 19-year-old first-year defensive midfielder playing professional minutes at the 6, right? Like,
or for that matter, Manu Garcia, who's made innumerable questionable passes in that exact situation.
Right, because he's actually trying to do too much, right? He's so confident in his own abilities and press resistance. And don't get me wrong, he's a fairly press resistant player. Yeah. But even he can get overrun sometimes and do some dumb shit when he does. And that is exactly the type of thing San Diego will try to do. The converse of that is San Diego is very clearly never going to kick it long. I think they have the lowest long goal kick number in the league. Probably, I mean, I'm sure they kick some long ones at the end of games when they're up a goal and they're just trying to close it out. But they quite intentionally try to draw your pressure forward so that they can play behind it. And it's just a different mindset. And they also have a 32-year-old high quality number 6 that they can rely on, that is very familiar with the playing style. Jacob Bartlett is 13 years his junior and has no experience playing at that speed with those types of passing responsibilities. So, like,
Yep.
I think as I've thought about this more, some of the choices make more sense to me. That you're sort of you. I think Kerry would like to play out of the back and try to draw pressure forward because honestly, it's a much more effective way of finding spaces behind in the offense. You're not going to be as effective. Kicking long is not a way to create goal scoring chances.
Well, especially given the rest of the roster, I mean, they don't. The team does not have, like a real true hold up player anywhere along the front line, right? I mean, yeah, I think in some respects, even Daniel Shallowy might be a better hold up presence than Joveljic, and so it's just not at the strength of anybody on the team, and so that kind of helps. That kind of mitigates any any
Offensive
good
value,
things,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Any offensive value that comes from the long kicks, and so I tend to agree with you that I think that they would prefer to play out of the back, at least more than what they do. But to Kerry's credit, I mean, I think it's you don't have the personnel for it, and also you have that a young player, and you're playing to his strengths, and we've spoken before about that's something that we appreciate about Sporting Kansas City's coach is the pragmatism in his approach, and so it is what it is, and I think it's just another thing that sort of adds to the sort of unknown nature of like what kind of coach Zavagnin really is. Like, if he had his preference and the players that he wanted to have of the skill level necessary, how would he approach the game? And I think that that's something that none of us fans have any idea of, honestly.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I'd like to think that for a guy who thinks about the game the way he does and is as pragmatic as we see that he can be about his players, that he might be more amenable to changing style based on available personnel, right? I think his reticence to make those changes is more related to trying to create consistency for some young players who need it, right, to be able to improve.
Yeah, there's no point in making changes. Just like there's no point even though I think you and I would like to see the 3-4-2-1 or some iteration of that. Like there's no point in that. It's not any changes that Zavagnin makes along those lines are going to be they're only, if they improve the team at all, it's only going to be a marginal improvement. And like this team would be like even from the get-go, they would have been exceptionally fortunate to make the playoffs, but it was not a trophy contending team in any respect. And so like what are we doing here, right?
Well, the other question, and this is a thing that I go through in my head a lot when we talk about the formational change. The thing I struggle with the formational change over and over and over again is, where does Manu Garcia play? Because he's not really a 10. Like he is 100% a central midfielder. Like he is a very gifted possession-based central midfielder with good offensive instincts.
Can't defend.
Right. But that means he can't play as in a double pivot. And if you put him up in this sort of 2-10 situation, he's kind of miscast there as well.
I would like to see it. I agree. I absolutely see what you're saying, and I don't disagree, but I would still like to see it.
He is the platonic ideal of the Peter Vermees left-sided 8-10. Like that is what he is, 100%.
Yeah.
And so when you look at who your designated players are, generally you're building your philosophy towards playing around those guys.
Right.
I can also see why they sort of proceed with the 4-3-3 until at least they get a legitimate ball winner to put alongside him, right? Yep. And I think that, maybe the hope is that Bartlett starts to unlock some of the more ball progression characteristics of the six that they need out of a single pivot six, and
Yeah.
that they can stay with it, right? I think that is probably the goal. And
Well,
if
it's
that
one of
is
those.
the case, they keep going. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's one of those things where something's got to give, right? Like he has to get better at that, or they have to, change things a little bit. Like things can't continue the way that they are, with hopes of being successful because they haven't been successful and they won't be successful unless you. Manu's at the age where you're not going to expect him to make huge developmental leaps, but Bartlett still can, and so and then when you couple that, if you were to couple that with signing a midfield ball winner, unfortunately the one that jumps to mind just signed for Southampton. So come on, that was for you, Drew.
I don't even know who you're talking
Oh,
about.
Granit Xhaka, man.
Granit Xhaka. Don't even. Nah, Jesus, I would quit. I would quit Sporting Kansas City if they signed Granit Xhaka. Fuck that guy all the way around.
He didn't. Did he sign for Southampton? Who did he sign for?
I think it was Southampton. Yeah,
It was okay.
Yeah,
okay.
but he played for Arsenal forever. So.
I know. That's why I threw that name out there. It was just for you.
I mean,
you kind of let me down. It wasn't.
I didn't even know that. I mean, I'm not paying attention. I mean,
the joke fell flat. It's my fault. If you have to explain it, it's a bad joke.
Anyway, I think that it'll be interesting to see where they focus. So, because another part of the conversation we had was one of the quote unquote young players that is not being prioritized really is Jake Davis. And it seems like that's more message sending than anything else, if I'm reading between the lines correctly. So I don't know, man. I
didn't Sperry say that he has not been performing in practice? Somebody said that.
I think that there was an allusion to that.
An allusion to that.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't been performing on the field either, up to the standard that he needs to. So,
I'm not saying. Yeah. Again, I'm actually the first person to say I don't think he's earned the right to start right now.
Yeah.
But also,
no, but nobody else has.
I think the counter argument that I made, which is why how has Nemanja Radja earned the right to start?
Right.
And why are similarly to Fernandez and Rosero, why are you prioritizing a player who is not going to be here?
Yeah, amen.
So I mean, it's again, but also there's a balance, I'm sure, that's being struck regarding veterans versus first year players and things of that nature as well. I think I did understand the general thought process behind starting Radja against Vancouver. It did not work, but I sort of understood it, even if it was unsuccessful. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens. I mean,
I was gonna say. I mean, it will be very interesting to see if he gets the start against San Diego, because you would think, given San Diego's pressing propensity, that might be tempting to stick him out there. But I think that would be a pretty big mistake.
To stick who out there? Davis?
Radja.
Yeah. I mean, you would think so, but it went so poorly against Vancouver
so poorly in all respects. Like, he was not good in any in any phase of the game.
Well, again, I mean, that's sort of an old dog new trick problem too, because they're playing him as an 8, and you can just see he just seems to be. So he's like trying to do passing things when that's just not something he's ever
pressing things.
And he's just not really good at either of those. And I understand that Jake is chaotic and perhaps not the best choice, but I mean, I don't know what else you do. Hopefully Manu's not hurt anymore, and this becomes a moot point, honestly. They can, because Basong, I think it's kind of wild to say this, but Basong's probably been the most reliable central midfielder they have. And he's a left back.
You know what they say, the best availability is the best ability is availability.
Yeah, there is a little bit of that with Basong, but he's performed well when he's played as well.
He is. I would not necessarily say well, but he's been adequate.
That's a fair. Yeah, he looks good comparatively. Let's put it that way.
He doesn't look bad.
Right.
I wouldn't even say he looks good. He just does not look bad. He doesn't embarrass himself.
I mean, the key question is really going to be who's even healthy for this game. I mean, that's gonna define a lot of the choices that are being made. and whether or not Kerry has found out a way to use Santi Munoz in the starting lineup, which I think again goes back to this conversation about sticking with this 4-3-3 structure that they're familiar with. Munoz doesn't really have a fit in there either, and I think that's why we continue to see him on the bench. Honestly, I think it's more related to that. I don't think the feeling I get is not that they're unsure of Munoz's quality, or that I think there's already conversations about picking up his purchase option, right? Like, I think that they're very happy with him. There's a lot of competing factors as to whether or not, when he can get on the field. And generally they require a fairly significant structural shift in order to do it.
But isn't that a reason to not pick up his option? I mean, I don't know. Like, it confuses me, right? Like, especially if you're gonna stick with Kerry Zavagnin as your coach, and he can't find a way to get Munoz on the field until the team's down 2 goals and it's the end of the game. Like,
I think that's all stuff that'll get discussed at the end of the year. But I'll put it this way: I don't think that they have been very happy with Munoz, and he has fit in very well. So
yeah, I like him. I think he's great, but I would also like to see him, have a little bit of a bigger role.
I agree. I think, I don't know. Like I said, Sperry brought up a bunch of risk mitigation stuff up last week that I hadn't really considered, but it makes sense. Munoz plays so narrowly. If you put him in as a winger, there's just swaths of space defensively on his side that have to be covered by a fullback. There's a key component to how San Diego plays that we'll discuss too, where Dreyer and Lozano, for as good as they are, they're very willing defenders and pressers as well.
Yep.
I don't know, if you put Munoz at winger, if you get that kind of performance out of him, and it's really important in a 4-3-3 that you get that, right?
I don't think he's a winger. Like, I think,
right.
I mean,
so like, what do you,
if you
sign
him
a
as
4-2-3-1 with him as a 10?
I don't know.
What do you do?
That's my point, Drew. Like I like him as a player, but if you're gonna be stuck in this kind of pattern of bringing him on and playing him in that role that you're not willing to play from the start of the game, like, I don't know what the point is.
Well, they might be more willing to play it if they were more structurally sound around him. I think that's
sure.
I think the issue is more that putting him on the field puts so much stress on areas of the formation that are not good to begin with. Like, right. I think that's it more than anything. I think they could put him on as
I would say the same thing about Eric Tommy too, honestly. Like, I'm not impressed with the pressing and defensive energy from either one of those guys necessarily. But I think that the discussion that you and Sperry were having last week about the fact that Santi Munoz he reads the space around him. I think that is worth a lot, because the team does not have a lot of players who are able to do that, especially when Manu's not on the field. And so it's just one of those problems that coaches. That's why coaches make the big money, right? Is to solve those kind of problems of how to get all of your best players in their best positions on the field and operating as a unit. And to this point, I don't feel like we've seen that problem solved, from first kick.
I'm not sure that it will be solved this season.
Sure. Right. You're probably right. You're probably right.
And yeah, it's a legitimate question to ask. It's like, you like the player and you think he brings a lot of value, but do you want to bring on a purchase option and be paying TAM or whatever for a bench player? Right.
Yeah, he's
in certain circumstances.
He's also a handsome man with very nice hair. I think. Don't you agree? I mean,
yeah. I guess I hadn't really considered it.
I mean, Zusi leaving has sort of left this void.
I don't know if I put Santi Munoz in the Graham Zusi.
No. He's a developmental prospect in terms of the hair, but yeah.
by all accounts, he fits in really well. He's fit into the locker room really well. He and Manu are legitimately like fast friends that hang out a lot. Like
that's important.
There is a lot there from the positivity and the cohesion and the vibes that and we've said this several times. There's one thing that's very certain of with Kerry Zavagnin is the vibes seem to be good.
Yeah,
and that is valuable as well. And the personnel you put in the locker room help with the vibes, right? And getting the right people in there is a good thing too. And so I don't know. It's this competing push-pull kind of thing for sure. But I really think Santi Munoz is less of a problem if Kyrie Shelton and Tim Leibold aren't playing fullback. Okay,
totally.
I really do.
Many of the team's problems would decrease if that was the case.
So like, can we like? I really do like. So you're not as concerned, right? If Jake Davis isn't covering 700 areas of grass that are defensively that aren't his press cover zone, like things are a little bit less problematic, right? Like they need to improve in so many areas, and Santi Munoz definitely puts a lot of stress in areas that are in vast need of improvement. So I think that is more the issue that Kerry is trying to solve with this roster. If they can improve some of those areas, he has a lot of value, I think, right? And hopefully they're able. And who knows? Who knows what this team looks like? New chief soccer officer might bring in a different coach, and that person might be a 3-4-2-1 ideologue, and Jacob Bartlett's just going to be a center back then. And maybe that's what it is. Like I promise you, Wilfred Nancy would not hesitate for one fucking second to put him at center back.
Yep.
I think Kerry is trying to do the best by him and make him the best player he can, and also probably sees a little bit of himself in him and is trying to do that.
I think that's a very good point. Yeah.
Right. And so from there's some of that going on there, but who knows? I at least can understand the thought process. I may not totally agree with it, but I can at least understand it.
All I can say is thank goodness that Santi Munoz did not hit that scorpion kick, because I'd be protesting outside the stadium to bring him back. So
it was very close to being.
It was close, man.
Yeah, I might have just ascended directly from that place. All right, let's move on to potpourri. Just like your favorite Jeopardy category, we got a bunch of topics in around the sporting Kansas City MLS soccer sphere. Let's start with the Kansas City Current, who, before kicking off the second half of their season in Louisville on Friday night, tried to take all the news away from the Alan Montes acquisition by making a much more impactful one. And I don't even know how this is possible, but they trade for Ali Sentnor, who is like literally the only player the Royals have of any the Utah Royals had of any consequence whatsoever.
That's how it's possible. She was like, "Get me the hell out of here."
I no longer want to be in this place. Wow. Like
she's like, "I can't even go get a drink. I have to buy a membership to just go have a drink. No, I'm out."
Those Mormon alcohol laws or something else, man. I did think it was funny that Utah went and got a draw with Orlando, even without Sentner, and scored a goal on some ridiculous 40-yard banger, which is typically what Sentner was trying to do while she was there. She was like, she knew she was the only player on the team, so just kept trying 30-yard golazos over and over again because there was like no chance she was getting a centering pass at any point.
The Ewing theory is alive and well. It
really is. Like, do the people that listen to our podcast know about the Ewing theory?
There are a bunch of old ass people who listen to our podcast.
Some of them are, but a lot of them are not. So, you and I know about the Ewing theory.
To research the salad days of the old internet.
Yeah. I mean, was Bill Simmons the creator of the Ewing theory?
He was.
I think he was.
Yeah. Bill Simmons writing long form for ESPN.
Page 2. Do you remember ESPN Page 2?
Yeah.
God, I'm old.
Yeah, it was stuff on ESPN and the internet that it would take you like, I don't know, 30 minutes to read it. It was that long. It was crazy.
Long. Well, and also like if it might take that long for it to load the page as well.
That's true too. It was too bogged down. There weren't even hyperlinks to other shit. You just had to read whatever you were stuck on.
Yeah, that text was just what you're gonna read.
Right.
Anyway, Ali
And
said,
no video.
yeah,
That's the real killer.
no,
Wow.
don't,
Wow.
yeah, I mean,
Yikes.
honestly, with the way pop-ups work these days and with all of the animation and whatnot on them while I'm trying to read something,
I'm telling you, we're bringing back zines, Drew. SKC zine is the next thing we're gonna
oh
the home and away zine.
just don't do it on Substack. Holy smokes.
Oh no, we're gonna print that motherfucker right out, dude.
Okay.
Just,
I'm not sure if you heard the news about Substack last week, but yeah,
I did.
That is not a platform we want to be involved in right now.
Not at all.
Anyway, Ali Sentner to the current. This is, I mean, obviously, I don't. I mean, one obviously informs the other with Vanessa DiBernardo going on maternity leave.
Yep.
And congrats to her and her husband. They seem connected at some level. I gotta believe that this conversation. I mean, they had to have known about her maternity leave for a little while, so maybe they are connected. Maybe the decision was made to do that. But it sounds to me like Sentner was right. It was like asking out, like asking for a move out, which I can understand. I mean, I don't see the Royals at any time soon becoming a useful club. And this is just like, I think there's a lot of people who cover the NWSL that call the current the Death Star because it's just kind of like how ominous it is to come play against them.
Yeah, they're
And
scary.
it's just like this is just another like weapon attached to it. Like DiBernardo goes out on maternity leave, they bring in Sentner. We saw in this game against Louisville where they only gave up like 0.17 xg, which is just goes back to just how much they suffocate their opponents. We saw Lacho sort of playing in that role, and I had not seen her play that role very much. We hadn't seen Lacho that much at all, really, for the team. And I was really impressed with her activity. A little chaotic, but very active player. And I was just trying to think of like Sentner playing in a similar role. Vlatko definitely went back to the 4-4-2, 4-2-4 thing that we had gotten familiar with earlier in the season before Lowe got injured. They were kind of more in a 4-2-3-1 when Lowe was hurt, because Rocky Rodriguez is a little bit more of a 6'8" than really a 8/10.
Right.
But yeah, with Lowe and Claire Hutton in the double pivot, they kind of got back into that 4-2-4 where the wide right side is Lacho and Michelle Cooper, and that used to be DiBernardo, and you can just imagine Sentner being over there and kind of adding another attacking piece that they're rotating through, and it's just like,
well, Sentner and Hutton are besties too, right?
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
that had
they
something
are.
to do with it, I'm sure. I mean, everybody wants to go play with their best friend, and maybe she loves Jason Sudeikis and barbecue, and
I mean, the current certainly have created a brand that is known throughout the league, both by fans and players, as a place that is good to play, right? You have your own stadium. You have a lot of really nice facilities. They're expanding the training facility even further into something even more ridiculous. They're obviously building the second team stadium over there by the training facility. They've definitely created a place of choice, which is, I think, was the goal, right? They wanted players to want to choose to play there.
It's an ambitious club, right? And in lots of different avenues, not just in terms of their play on the field, but in terms of their impact on the community. And I mean, I can see how players, especially young and dynamic players, would want to play for a club that's ambitious and dare I say, a little sexy. I mean, players want to play for clubs like that.
Yeah, I mean, this team is just absolutely taken their opponents to the woodshed over and over and over again.
Yep.
They are just, they continue, and they impose their will on the opponent, like something that is even more significant than what I saw last year. Last year was a whole lot of fuck it, Temwa down there somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like that was kind of what they were doing. This year, they are so much more adept at creating making the opponent think they have a space to play in and then immediately eliminating it,
shutting it down. Yeah.
and then turning them over and going straight up field again.
Yep.
Like they're one of the better trapping teams that I've seen in a while, and their pressure, like their cover shadows under pressure are so good and so coordinated. And it's like I watch them play, and then I watch Sporting Kansas City play, and I'm like, oh my god. And I would like take the film of the current into a Sporting Kansas City film session and go, see this? Yeah. See how this works? Can I please get more?
Yeah, they I think, as we pointed out earlier, they don't really have the personnel to do that kind of job, unfortunately.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, that there's something to be said for the fact that the current have built a roster of extremely high quality, right? Yeah. Comparatively to their opponent, which has some value in them being able to pull off the stuff that they do.
It's crazy to for a team that has had one of the best rosters in the league to just constantly be they're just not resting on their laurels. They're constantly looking to get better and better and better. And I don't know. It's almost like our very own Liverpool. Honestly, it's crazy.
I mean, it really. As much as I hate to agree with you, it is absolutely true.
I think you don't have to. I said that to get you going, man. You don't have to agree with me. Come on.
No, they play a lot like Liverpool does. Yeah, they really do. They play very similarly, and they are just as difficult to get to their goal. Right, yeah. Like just the way that they play team defensively, with traps and pressure and whatnot, they make it just as hard to just get to a point where you can get a decent shot off. So like it is a very similar thing. But I think you're right. I think I had highlighted that in the Discord, was like you can see them in real time building in contingencies for when other players leave.
Yeah. Yep. That is the way. If you can do it, if you can do that as a club, that's pretty impressive. Because a lot of clubs, I think, try to do that in the men's game and in the women's game, and it's just tough. It's tough to balance egos. It's tough to find the right players to slot into to those positions, and it's really, really difficult for teams to transition from, especially from when they have like elite world class players, and the fact that that the current are already building a plan to move on, if that's what it takes, while still maintaining a cohesive and well balanced squad. It's impressive. It really is, and right. It's nice that they're a model for the league, and they're a model for I think especially women's football, and I think that it's awesome that they're in our town.
Yeah, for sure. So hopefully we'll get to see Ali Sentner this weekend. I mean, she's in Kansas City. You sort of alluded to the very heartwarming video of Claire Hutton meeting her at the airport that hit the socials. But yeah, I would expect. I mean, she's healthy and has been a very useful player on the women's national team with Claire Hutton over the last several windows. So I think that you'll see a player who has a lot of quality and value, and it's just going to make the current even more dangerous. And Dabinia got back in this game as well. Like, they were already beating everybody, and now we're bringing back Dabinia, adding Ali Sentner. Like, it is an embarrassment of riches, to be completely honest. And there's still, and Gabby Robinson should be coming back from season-ending injury at some point soon. Yep. So they won't be quite as thin at center back. Like this is a good team that continues to get better.
If you like good soccer, there are two teams to watch in Kansas City, and one of them plays good soccer.
Yes. Well, I mean. Sporting can be entertaining, at least, which is not something we could say.
No, previously. That's true. But I chose my words carefully. Yeah. I said good soccer.
Good soccer. So. Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's. Speaking of teams who have a very good roster and continue to reload, LAFC has apparently completed the deal for Son Heung-min to which. Look, man, I'm gonna struggle not to just tune into every LAFC game. I love that guy so much. He's so good. And all these people that can't, like, well, he and Denny Bouanga are both ball dominant left wingers. How are they going to make this work? Okay, first, like, come on. Like, realistically, it's Sun Heung-min. You think he can't figure out how to play alongside another good player? You're fucking out of your mind.
He played along Harry Kane for a long time.
Yeah.
Very successfully.
Very successfully. Okay.
Yeah.
And then when Harry Kane left, the first year under Ange, he played center forward like 90% of the season.
He did.
And had 17 and 10. So
Yep.
can, like, everybody calm the fuck down? Like, he doesn't know how to play. He played center forward, and they had Kulusevski and Brennan Johnson playing wing. Like, they can... He's perfectly fine.
He'll be okay.
He'll be fine. And in fact, like, I think Matt Doyle like tried to call it akin to Vinny Jr. and Mbappe at Real Madrid, like be an MLS version of it. I'm like, bro, no. First of all, no. Secondly,
both of those players have like Milky Way sized egos, and
that's what I was gonna say.
And
It's
Son doesn't.
No.
Son will do what needs to be done.
He's the happiest, chillest dude on earth,
is.
and he plays center forward for the fucking national team too. Like, everybody needs to chill out. He will understand that Denny Bouanga is kind of a one-trick pony and has to play on the left and dribble a lot in transition, and Sonny will just shade in the middle.
Yep.
Never mind the fact that he's probably one of the best two-footed finishers that I can remember. And so, like, if you go watch any of the highlights of him, guy can curl it from 40 yards with either foot. Like, just calm down. He'll be just fine. All right.
He's gonna be good.
And also, if you think that he's washed, man, do I have some news for you. This guy is going to feast on MLS defenses, man. He is not going to be Olivier Giroud standing in the middle of the field going, looking pretty and not doing much. Like, that is not going to be Son Heung-min. Nope. And they've added more players. They got Ryan Porteous. They added at center back, which should shore them up a little bit there. So, like, LAFC is one of those teams that has a very good roster and is improving in real time.
Yep.
I think Bogert was saying even after signing Son, they still have a DP slot as they could use as well.
Of course.
Which is just
they got to keep it open for Griezmann because you just never know.
You never know.
You just never know.
Didn't he sign a new deal with Atletico?
He did.
Like 2027 or something.
He did. But like I said, Drew, you never know.
I mean, Griezmann, Sonny, and Bouanga up top would be pretty ridiculous.
It doesn't. So that's the thing about LAFC, right? Is because they are LAFC and they are in LA. Like, it behooves them to always keep an open DP slot because you just never know what's going to pop, And some, international superstar football player might just decide to, go live in La La Land for a season and see what it's like, and so that. I mean, you kind of have to appreciate that that's kind of built into their, club game model. It's just always have one in the chamber ready if you need it. So kudos to them.
Yeah, I mean, you take advantage of your location and your prestige and whatnot to gain.
But they're not trying to have like 3 or 4 DPs and somehow like shoehorn in another one like some clubs, right? They're they're doing it quote unquote honestly. And they're also
Miami did not. Okay, we've talked about
I
this.
I know. I'm just joking.
Okay.
But I think that the thing is with them is they also are. They move on from players really readily, and it's part of their model to sell players and to scout players and bring players in, and they're really good at it. And I can't wait for them to have a different kind of coach because Cherundolo is just not my bag, honestly. And they could be just so much more dynamic and exciting with somebody else. So hopefully
you hope so, but they don't really have the midfield full of passers. So
no, but I mean, but that could be influenced just by having Cherundolo, right? I mean, that might be influencing the kind of players that they're going after. So
I guess Delgado is decent, so I guess I shouldn't say. But I mean, I just don't think of any of those guys hitting through balls.
No, they don't. They don't have like a super creative midfield, but they have a really good midfield.
Yeah,
a midfield of guys who ball.
They have like 1,100 fucking central midfielders. Honestly, like Mike Burns might want to be like, hey, you
got something?
You want to send one of those central
Something.
midfielders over here, please? Because we could really use some. We could use it. Because they just got Frankie Amaya on loan, right?
Yeah.
Anyway. Or did they sign him from Red Bulls? I can't remember how they got him. Anyway, they have a lot of central midfield options. But
Sporting needs somebody like Frankie Amaya because you got to have somebody whose name really goes well with Seven Nation Army. So, now that they got rid of Willie Agata, you got to have just one player.
Okay. I don't even know where the fuck that came from. Just from the depths of your brain somewhere.
This is what happens when I have a week off. I have time to think about all this stupid inane bullshit.
Really inane things that may have not really connected to anything we were discussing.
Drew, I've been hanging out with like little kids, like 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders all day. It's I need an outlet.
You need to be able to talk to adults for a moment. I
Right.
understand. All right. The next hot stove story, which is I thought kind of funny. In the most MLS move ever, Milan Iloski gets picked up by the Philly Union after having his loan terminated by San Diego, but somehow Montreal gets $250,000 in GAM.
Classic the MLS.
It is such the MLS that I like trademark the MLS that I had to highlight it. I'm not even going to get to the details. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Just read this. Just listen to it and just imagine. Let your imagination run wild.
Just let it wash over you. the MLS-ness of all of it, right? Portland were pretty active, so they signed a designated player, winger from Olympiacos, a Norwegian international, guy I've never heard of before. But I mean, Olympiacos is one of the top teams in Greece, so obviously probably a decent player. But they $7 million fee, I think, is what I heard for this guy. So that is actually probably a big ad for them. I don't know, is Cabecito ever going to come back this year?
I don't think so. I mean, I think he is on season-ending injury.
Oh, is he?
Isn't he?
Okay, is he on the SCI? Maybe that's why they can sign this guy. I didn't even think about that.
I think that's the case.
Shows how closely I'm looking at the cap situation for or the roster situation.
And frankly, I'm talking out of my ass. So who knows? He might be playing this weekend. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that he's done.
I feel like he had just come back from injury when Portland played us, and then he got injured like right after that again.
I think maybe it wasn't a completely. I think it was just a long-term injury type of thing that needed to be dealt with, but I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I mean that makes sense. Oh yeah, he is out for the season. You're correct. Yeah. He had cartilage restoration surgery, according to the AI overview on Google. So that might be completely wrong. Who knows? But they also got Felipe Carballo, who formerly was a loan player for the New York Red Bulls. They just signed him on loan, but did not have to pay Montreal $250,000 in GAM. So that's good news.
Weird. Yeah.
See, it's the MLS. You never know. I'm going to keep calling it the MLS when we talk about transactions like that. The biggest sort of one that got everybody fired up yesterday came sort of seemingly out of nowhere. Toronto FC buys Georgi Mihailovic in a cash for $8 million. I
mean, okay.
This is the benefit. So, this is why you want your MLS team to be owned by a consortium that also owns an NHL team, because a $10 million loss on the books looks like nothing.
Not a big deal. I mean, it won't be a loss, right? I mean, Mihailovic is not a bad player. I mean, I don't know how good of a player he is, but he's not an $8 million player, that's for sure. But whatever.
I guess
I think that.
Go ahead.
The point is, I think the point with him is he plays a high leverage position in the league, right? He's a number 10. He's a good number 10, right? An above average, maybe almost
more than above
very
average.
Good.
Right.
He's very good. He's not quite elite, but he's up there, and he can do the job, right? And so. Yeah, I mean, it's as guaranteed as a signing in MLS would probably get. And so, we said a similar thing about Joveljic when Sporting Kansas City signed him. And, I think that I think that Mihailovic kind of maybe falls into a similar category. And would I be thrilled if my team signed him? Probably not. But my team didn't sign him, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's easier to look from a distance at this one than it is if it was up close.
I mean, he's no Insigne, that's for sure.
Actually, he's going to be way more effective than Insigne, I bet.
That's a low bar, my friend.
It is. But I mean, I think it's noteworthy, and I think that has to do with why Toronto was willing to fork over cash for him.
That bar is so low, Insigne could walk under it. That's how low it is.
For those that aren't aware, Lorenzo Insigne is very short. So this is the joke.
He's like 5'2". He's ridiculous.
Is he taller than Javinko? Like they had this sort of infatuation with diminutive Italians, and one of them worked out, one of them did not. I think that that probably goes into the calculus for Toronto. Tom Booker went through this a lot on the Soccer Wise pod today, so I suggest that you listen to it. But the long and short of it, what his reporting was that they expected. So I guess Colorado did not want to sell him, was not interested in selling him in the summer, and really wanted to keep him through the season. Toronto was really worried that there's going to be like a big like sort of auction for his services, right? Like it was going to be a lot of buyers like in for him, and that the price might even be higher than $8 million in the winter. Colorado just signed him in 2024, but I mean, realistically, guaranteed proven 10 performance in MLS is really valuable. And I think the other point that Tom really brought up that I think is super important is that this whole cash for players thing is going to really open up a significant market inside the league for player movement that just didn't exist. And we've only seen a couple of them, and they've been sort of small so far because people are sort of testing it out. And we're going to start seeing these $8 to $10 million intra-league transfers now that we just haven't seen in the past because they weren't capable of doing it. But teams are willing to spend high 7, low 8-digit figures for guaranteed production from that position.
Yeah.
And you're going to get it from Mihailovic.
If there's a place on the field that you pay for that is at that position. So
100%.
Colorado just needs to wake up and realize that like weed is legal everywhere now, right? Like they don't. I mean, there's nothing special about Colorado anymore. Sorry.
I mean, realistically, Colorado is just never going to be the team that is buying $10 million intra-league players.
Not until they get new owners, for sure. Right.
They're just going to keep signing the rejects from those teams, like Rob Holding. So, I mean, like that's what's going to happen.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah. That's good.
I mean,
for the Rob Holding is the next player in the rundown in Drew's notes. So
it is. Well, and also he plays for the other team that Kroenke owns, or did play for the other team that Kroenke owns. But I just think Colorado's going to be in a position where I wonder when their model is going to start to run out of steam as far as getting results in the league. Like I think they did some good stuff over the last couple of years as far as like getting some of these distressed American assets out of Europe that like went to Europe, maybe weren't bad but weren't great, but are good MLS players, and bringing them back and sort of getting a lot of really high quality domestic MLS players together and building some results out of it, and sort of using their analytics department to help build that out. They have a very, very sophisticated analytics department that is just starting to sort of bear fruit. I just wonder at some point that if the dollars and cents are going to kind of get beyond their ability to make that work.
I mean, I don't think so. Honestly, I think that their robust scouting and analytics departments will help, keep their head above water. And I mean,
head above water or be competitive.
So I don't like they'll be competitive the way that they've been the last few years, right? Like they haven't been in contention really for MLS Cup or even Open Cup, but they've been a decent and competitive team, and I think that's even absent major spend. I think that's where analytics and MLS can get you, right? A competitive team that is penny wise, I think is what they're going to be, and that's kind of what they've been. So
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even realize that they were this far down. They're like in ninth in the Western
yeah,
Conference. For some reason,
yeah,
I thought they were higher up than that. They seem like a better team than that, so maybe not. I just that's what I'm saying. It's like it's hard to like at least with Sporting Kansas City, I can see a path towards them trying to create like competitiveness for trophies. Like they have that goal in mind, and they are going to maybe not spend in the top quarter of the league, but certainly spend in that next tier down and be really smart about it to try to build something. Like that is the goal within the building, and get back to the level of competitiveness that won them 4 trophies in 6 years or whatever it was. I don't see a way that Colorado gets there.
no, no, and I mean, just to be very frank and honest, I don't. I think it's very unlikely that Sporting gets back to that level in a meaningful way.
Well, I think with 30 teams in the league, it's going to be impossible for any team to do that.
Yeah.
Honestly. I
Well,
don't think
unless you are in LA or in Miami or
LAFC has won 2 trophies in their existence. So I mean, more power to them. But
what I
don't-
mean, Drew, is that it's LA. Like people just want to live in LA, right? Like they will have a constant
right. Well,
influx
that's
of
what
high level
Miami
talent.
has going on with them as
Right.
well, right?
Right.
I think
And
that-
Colorado's not that, and neither is Kansas City. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've talked too much about the difference between this and the NFL, and you can't draft Mahomes in MLS. You know what I mean? Like, there's difference in kind of how all that works, and we'll see. I have more optimism towards Kansas City finding a way to win a trophy over the next 10 years than I do Colorado. Let me put it that way. And I don't think any team is going to get to a place where they are regularly competing for trophies all the time. I just think there's going to be too much competition.
it sure seems that way.
Anyway, so I made the joke about Rob Holding. Yes, he is going to Colorado as well. They had to replace Awaziem, so they signed one of the Arsenal's rejects. Thanks, Dan Kroenke. And then there was a bunch of other ones we don't need to get into. Leagues Cup. Are you paying attention to this tournament at all? I asked Sperry last week.
I watched a handful of games over the weekend, but that was I'm loosely paying attention to it, but I'm not invested in it in any meaningful way, frankly. I know that San Diego plays tonight, and I'm excited about that because any way that Sporting Kansas City can maybe get a leg up, I'm all about that. So
Yeah, I think that's the biggest benefit for it from a Sporting Kansas City perspective. They all got the week off last week. They came back into training on Monday, and San Diego's just been playing games that whole time. So
Yeah.
it's a fairly dense
they've been losing
schedule.
games, to be fair. So
Yeah, they've had a tough schedule, to be completely
yeah,
honest.
they
Like,
have.
all these teams get to play. You know, every MLS team gets to play. They play 3 Mexican teams, and vice versa. Mexican teams play 3 MLS teams, and it's just I guess I like how they sort of shortened it. They've just turned it into this sort of 3 rounds, and then you've got 8 teams, and you do the bracket, and you're done. Right? Like I think that's probably the
Well,
best.
we can all thank God that that LigaMX does not have 30 teams, because that would last forever.
Yeah, it would take. Well, I mean, yeah. Well, they're only taking the top 4 from each league into the knockout rounds. So
Right. But I mean that's why the whole thing is truncated at all is to even things up. That's why Sporting Kansas City's not in there.
Right, because they could do 16 or they do 20 and 20. Right. Anyway, yeah. I mean, San Diego had Pachuca, Tigres. They have Mazatlan tonight, so that might be a game that they can do well in. But regardless, even though those games are all at home for them, they are like this is gonna be their 3rd game in what
10 days.
10 days, and then they have to come to Kansas City on Saturday. So from that perspective, I'm kind of like, yeah, wear out those legs. Maybe we'll get some value from it. I don't know that it's going to make any difference, but
I don't think it will make any difference, but it's something at least.
yeah. the biggest thing that's been the most entertaining for me is just the amount of red cards. There have
Yeah.
been so many red cards in this tournament. I, I really just, I mean, there's some entertainment value in watching these games just to see what kind of wild shit's going to happen. There's some serious CONCACAFing. There's some
Yep.
serious Mexico versus U.S. sort of stuff going on.
Yep.
I mean, not in a political sense, just in a, just sort of rivalry sense. And yeah, these games get chippy and they get kind of wild, and especially at the end of them, we see crazy stuff happen. So yeah, there's already a red card tonight in the Montreal Puebla match.
Oh my
so,
gosh.
like
Of course.
yeah. Anyway, so I think from that perspective, it's been fun. But whatever, I don't care that much about it. It's been mildly entertaining. I will tell you, I've gotten really bored of penalty shootouts though. Like
Yeah,
I
it's better than extra time, but yeah, I can see what you mean.
I'm sort of like over it. When I've seen my third penalty shootout of the night, it was like, whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. Like there
Yeah.
used to be a novelty in seeing them. It was just like,
Yeah.
this is kind of crazy thing. Kind of like at the end. Did you watch the end of the Copa America Femenina? The
No, I
final?
did not.
Oh
I
my
did not.
God, man. It was one of the, I kind of turned it on in the second half. It is wild. It was one of the best finals I've ever seen. Like it was unbelievably good. Brazil, Colombia, the lead changed several times, and then again in extra time, and it looked like Marta came on and scored in 90 plus. It was like the last kick of regular time to tie the game on an insane goal. She scores another one in extra time. You think Brazil's gonna walk, and then Colombia scored like right at the end, and they ended up going to penalties. And Lorena made a save, made a few saves, and made the final save to win it in penalties. It was a wild game, but very very good. Much more entertaining than Leagues Cup. All right, one thing to look for. Let's preview the San Diego match. So Joe Lowry, good friend of the pod, did his second long form I love San Diego FC article of the year. I'm giving Joe
It's not just him. It's
Yeah.
like the Guardian, like everybody's going all in on San Diego. It's okay.
It is, and I mean, at some level, I understand it, right? It's an expansion team
absolutely.
that has a very defined identity in much different way than like St. Louis did in its first year, and they have built this identity from sort of the what's it called, the Right to Dream. Is that the whole program that they have? And so FC Nordsjælland is sort of their partner club.
The Right to Dream relationship makes for a much more compelling narrative than just buying all the two Bundesliga teams.
The double Bundesliga players, yeah,
Right.
exactly. So they had a very like sort of defined philosophy and game model, if you want to call it that, towards how they played. That comes from Right to Dream and Nordsjælland and how that team plays in Denmark. And they sort of brought that to San Diego, and they, made some acquisitions, but also brought some players over from Nordsjælland and brought a lot of the personnel over and sort of helped instill it, and then had this sort of youth domestic philosophy towards acquisition as well. So they have a lot of a lot of players that have featured for the U.S. Men's, U18 and U20s that are a part of their roster as well. But realistically, like it is like taking the build out of the back at all costs to like the next level, right?
Yeah.
As far as how they go about progressing the ball, they invite pressure intentionally to try to trap you into pressure they can play behind. And then Joe goes into detail about third man runs in his article. We've talked about third man runs before. Third man runs are a very fancy way of talking about an off-ball triangle formation, right? Like most of what passing movements that you'll see are generally players arranged in triangles, right? Like that is how they create passing angles, right? So like you're trying to draw defenders forward and move back behind the space, and then so you've got those two players pulling defenders forward, and then you move into the space behind, and you've created a triangle with a passing angle into it. That is what they're doing with these sort of quote unquote third man runs. It's really no much more than doing a rotating triangle up the field, which is sort of rondoing a little bit, right? But it's with three players. So, but the thing about San Diego is they are extremely well drilled at it. it's the same thing that Nancy's Columbus does, right? Like this is not stuff that is sort of earth shattering. What is sort of interesting about them is how sort of like I'm trying to figure out what the word I want to say is, but they are ideologues about it, and they will just do it over and over and over again, and they are very well drilled at it, and to where they're constantly like Joe's article does a really good job of showing a sequence where Yepe Sverskov, I can't say his name. I'll never be able to say
That
his
works.
name. I don't
I
know.
think you did a
Anyway,
good job.
their six was like literally like pointing to the next pass when Anibal Godoy got it, so that he could see where the third man was. And they just have very specific philosophies for ball movement, and it exploits space. It pulls defenders forward, exploits space behind it. I have huge concerns for how this team will be able to pull Sporting Kansas City's midfield out of space, because that's just something they haven't needed extremely well drilled passing models in order to get by them in the past. So like what I don't even know. Again, this kind of goes back to the Vancouver game. I have very limited expectations because this is such an active team and they also press really well, and they do coordinated pressing really well. And
So
I mean, we don't really have to worry about goal kicks because they're just going to kick it long. But I mean, in the midfield, I do have a lot of concerns about them turning the ball over and also being easy to play through.
So what it does is it makes it really easy to play through teams who don't have good defenders, right? Because it
and when you say good defenders, I want to be clear. We're talking about not players whose name is necessarily titled defender. We're talking about all players on the field whose responsibility is to defend.
Right. Right, because you have to be able to recognize the sort of give and go that's happening, and you have to be able to either mark the player or cut off the passing lane, or hopefully both of those things. And it's just really difficult to do, and so those kind of simple passing triangles can undo like even really fantastic teams, right? Because it's really difficult to mark and defend just a triangle of attacking players doing a give and go. And so, and so remember, the give and go is just like, you receive the ball from a player who's making after he passes it, is making a run beyond. And if you add a third player into that, you have, I don't know, almost infinite numbers of ways that sort of relationship can go, of players passing and then moving into space to receive the next pass or the pass after the pass. And so if you don't have players who are positionally sound and able to defend 1v1 well, and who are able to recognize problems as they're happening, and be reactive in a proactive way, if that makes any sense. If you don't have those type of players, then it's really easy to get undone. And I think that what attacking sequences from a team like San Diego do is it's just really simple. They just pull you apart, right? They just pull you out. They bait players into overextending themselves defensively, pulling away from the defensive organization, and then they makes it really easy to play in quickly behind them, and then once they're in, they can continue the move to goal. And so I think that it just places a lot of pressure on every player on Sporting Kansas City to really sort of have their head up and their wits about them, and to stay with plays, and to don't get caught ball watching, to be aware of off ball runners. And it's really, really difficult to do. It's difficult to do sometimes for really good teams and teams with really good defensive players. And if you have a player like a team like Kansas City, who has a bunch of substandard players who are substandard defenders, it makes it just even more difficult. And so yeah, that's just a long way of saying that. Like, I'm not optimistic.
Right.
I'm not optimistic about how they'll handle it. I think that that the midfield, especially of San Diego, is really adept at playing this way, and I don't think that even with everybody healthy, that Sporting Kansas City has a midfield that's capable of really doing what needs to be done. Now, we saw before that Sporting Kansas City hung with San Diego for did they get a draw out of that game?
They did.
They did, right?
They
Yeah.
had 0 xG in the game, but
Perfect.
they were able to get a draw by I mean, there were some big saves by Pulskamp in that one. I think San Diego had, I mean, it was one of those variance games for sure.
Yeah.
Where San Diego was just not able to get one in the net. They probably should have, but
Yeah. So that's I think that's what you're going to see, right? It's going to be something similar, I would expect, to the game versus Vancouver, in that Sporting Kansas City looks okay at first, but then they look susceptible to a goal, and then once the goal happens, then they have to get out and try and create, and that's going to make it easier for San Diego. And so I think that it's just it's become sort of a trope to say this at this point, but it's really about development. Hopefully we can see the new defender and see him out there, and at least maybe in limited time, maybe in the second half, that would be fine. But I would keep expectations in terms of a result pretty low. But Sporting Kansas City has shown this year that they can be competitive even against these teams who are really good, especially in the first half. And so that's kind of what I'm hanging my hat on, right? Is that hopefully they can make it, they can gum it up and make it difficult for San Diego FC, and maybe knock one on a counterattack or on a set piece, and give themselves a chance to earn a result. And I think that's really that's about the best that Sporting KC fans can expect out of this.
yeah. I mean, I would just hope for some positivity regarding the new center back, maybe some some positive performances in the midfield. But as you noted, there are very good defensive MLS teams, or teams with very good, like, sure central midfields. They get pulled out of space by this team a lot. It just the way their off ball movement combined with their pressure baiting is just really good. Like, it's
and
really,
their
really
skill level, like they have.
Yeah.
It's not just that they do that stuff, but then they have players who are able to make something happen with that. And
they have a fairly veteran midfield.
Yeah.
Like, that is a big part of it. Tverskov, obviously, he's like 32 and has been playing for a long time. But then Luca Della Torre, Anibal Godoy, these are players who have a lot of experience. And so the front part of their formation is fairly veteran laden. And I think the key with getting at San Diego, honestly, is trying to figure out how to get beyond their midfield line. Because if you can get back there to their defensive line is very young and has a high ceiling as far as like long term, but they're young, and they're more about prospects than necessarily finished articles there. And I think that if you can potentially get on the ball going downhill towards their back line, that is where you can get San Diego, because they really defend with pressure, right? Like, their whole thing is about turning you over before you get to that place. So that is the way to try to get to them. But I have limited expectations of Sporting's ability to do that. And so, like, to your point, I'm hoping maybe we see new center back and potentially sort of securing things a little bit better in the box. I feel like in the game in San Diego, Sporting didn't really try to do too much. They sat back a lot in that one.
Yeah.
And you gotta, and which is honestly something I might suggest to a lot of teams who aren't really trying to, like, or don't feel confident in their ability to turn San Diego over, which most people shouldn't. Just sit back and don't take the pressure bait.
Yeah.
It's probably the best way, honestly. Just keep your lines tight and sit back against them, because if you try to play in the midfield against them, you're generally opening yourself up for some problems at some point.
It would be great for Daniel Shalhoub to have a big game, right? This is the kind of game where Sporting Kansas City needs his ability to pressure the back line and sort of play in behind. And, I think that that is a potential, that area of the field is a potential place where Sporting Kansas City can have some luck. And so it would be nice to see that. I'm unmoved by the opposite side of the field with Shoppy, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I think the deal with Shoppy is that he is what they have at right wing. It's not that it's like this is the finished article and this is where they want to end up as a roster in the future. I just think it's what they have right now.
Yep, that's true.
And so we'll see. In the future, if they're able to add some quality in that regard. But I think that until then, we'll just have to kind of work with what we have and see if. I mean, it's not like Shoppy is unproductive. He's just not really that exciting.
Productive? Oh.
I mean, he's got? Like 2 goals and six assists or something like that.
That's not that much.
I mean, oh no, 2 goals and 3 assists. Wait.
Yeah.
I think he has more MLS assists. I'm looking at FBref. He's probably got more MLS assists. Well, I mean,
okay.
Whatever
is right. I think it's worth going to the game just to see San Diego play, because they play dynamic and interesting soccer, and it's worth going to support your hometown team because they have proven that they can be competitive even against superior teams. And so and it's been a while since they've been home and we've been able to go to a game. So
definitely. So we'll have to see how that game shakes out, and hopefully we will see y'all there. And until then, and until next week, I'm Drew. He's Cody. We will talk to y'all then.
Go Sporting.
Start doing it.